Hello, and welcome to Success with Sanvi. Here today, I have my Mount Hebron advisor and a former judge of Maryland FBLA, Mr. Gorleski. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here.
Wonderful. So can you start off by giving us an introduction of who you are and your experience with FBLA?
Yes, so I started at Mount Hebron 22 years ago, and about 2 years in, I took over the Future Business Leaders of America Club. We started out pretty small. It was pretty small. It was a small club to start with. We only had about 5 or 6 people, but we did manage to make it to states, which was a big accomplishment about our second year in. And I took on Future Business Leaders of America because at the time I was teaching business classes and information system classes, and it was a great fit. But from that time forward, I've found it to be a really engaging and valuable club to all the students involved and the adults involved. So that kind of kept me with it and kept me enthusiastic about being the advisor for the club.
So, in today's episode, we're going to go into some judging insight, presentation tips, and preparation strategies. So, starting off, what do you think makes FBLA a valuable organization from the educator's point of view?
Well, they talk a lot in industry now about the soft skills that potential candidates for a job need. And the thing is, most of the candidates, they have the hard skills. That's the intellectual knowledge, the understanding of the business, the degree, all that stuff. But what they're lacking is those person-to-person, those intrapersonal skills that they need to have to be successful in many different fields. And Future Business Leaders of America definitely tackles those skills and helps students refine those skills. And that's valuable for us because it makes a much better caliber of student, but it also fills us with the confidence that our students will be successful in the future because they will go into those future careers with that portfolio of skills that they need to be successful. And they won't have to try to play catch up, build those skills after the fact.
Yeah.
Which is always much harder to do.
I 100% agree with that. And I think it's really valuable too as us students are going into like college and things like that where we have internships and where we need to attend interviews. I think it's just a really good skill to have. So my next question is, what drew you to judging and what do you think that judges look for?
Well, what drew me to judging is basically we need to fill spots when they're having these large competitions. So they draw in all possible candidates. But I have also taken former FBLA members at this school. When we hosted regions, the 2 times we've hosted it, I brought in those former students and they've become judges. And so they see the whole picture even more so than I do. But what judges really look for is confidence. And once again, those skills, those soft skills that the student should have when they're presenting in front of a judge. The judge isn't so concerned about just having the product laid out in front of them and seeing how good the product is. That's of course important, but they also need to see that the student's confident about that product, that they can readily answer questions about that product and how they created it, and also that they just do those simple things like they maintain eye contact, they shake hands with the judges and introduce themselves before they start their presentation. All those are things we don't really think about in the business world when we're doing it. But when you haven't done it and when you're new to it, they're very important. It shows that you're ready for the responsibility that's being placed upon you. So it's really that confidence and being able to present your product and make the judges enthusiastic about it. You're not just laying out a bunch of facts about your product. You're leading them through the journey of making that product, and they want to follow along on that journey. That's really what gets the really high skills, the really high marks in the skills and the other categories that the judges are checking off on their rubric.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for anybody who's starting out. I think when I was a freshman, a lot of this is really new to me. So, just in general, just the shaking your hands, the walking in with confidence was really difficult. So, I think just making sure you practice that, I think would be, really critical. And my next question is, what are your thoughts on smartwatches, phones, and other technology use during the presentation?
I'm a bit old-fashioned, so I think the very best presentation is one where you don't need to reference anything. You've practiced enough where you can just go straight from, you can look at the judges, you don't have to be checking your notes. Quite honestly, though, I still like note cards. Remember, it's just like a PowerPoint. You're not reading from the PowerPoint. You're just referencing it to kind of keep you at the right pace and keep you covering the material you need to cover. So that's all you really need on the note cards. You have your different topic areas, maybe one thing you want to mention, and then you flip it to the next note card. But all the conversation should be coming from you, not from the notes anyway. And I just find if you're like looking at your phone or looking at a smartwatch, some judges, especially the younger ones, might realize, oh, they're just checking their notes. But an older judge might just think you're checking your messages or something, or you got a buzz on your phone or a vibration on your watch, and you're seeing who just texted you. So I would suggest students away from that. Go back to the traditional. You're not going to lose points for using the traditional method, but you could potentially lose them for using the modern methods.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for anybody who's
And keep in mind, most of these
Yep.
judges are older.
Right.
Most of them have been in the field for many, many years, and they're doing it out of retirement or as a service to FBLA or the community or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think rule of thumb is just stick to paper. Okay, so my next question would be, if there's a tie between two students at the top, what do you think are small things that would differentiate your scoring?
I think it really comes down to who is more memorable, which presentation was more memorable. Because they've already checked off everything on the rubric, but what really sticks in their mind? They're going to be discussing amongst their other judges, and they're going to be like, I really liked when they did this, and this really spoke to me when they did this. And that's going to give them that extra point that's going to put them over the finish line into first place.
Yeah, I think definitely things like hand gestures, vocal modulations, I think could definitely contribute to that. Okay, so my next question would be, because I know this is, because I've talked to different members in FBLA, and for some reason, I know that a lot of freshmen and sophomores think that an intro event doesn't have the same weight as a regular event just because it's like smaller, like competition level. What do you think about that?
Well, it's true to some extent, because with an intro event, you know in your mind that you're only competing against two other grade levels.
Right.
So you're going to be at a comparable skill level. Some of those intro event students will have been in the middle school level FBLA, so they're going to have a lot more experience. So there is that category, but for the most part, you're only competing with other 9th and 10th graders. When you take a non-intro event, and we've had 9th and 10th graders who've taken the general event, not the introduction one, and they've actually beat out some of the 11th and 12th graders, so it's not impossible. But you're competing against all 4 grade levels. You could be a 9th grader competing against a 12th grader who's gone through 3 national events.
Right. Okay.
So they're going to have a more refined product, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I think for sure. I also think that when competing against like older grades, I do think that to some extent they have more like school pressures, so that you can also leverage knowing that you're going to have more time to work on your presentation.
That's very true.
So my next question would be, I know a lot of students, especially my friends, even this happened to me, but how would you handle a technical issue in like a very professional way during a presentation, whether that be a technical issue on your laptop or some kind of disruption?
The best way to do it is just continue with it. If your PowerPoint stops working, just carry on without the PowerPoint. If you know your presentation well enough, you can do that. And the judges aren't going to know any difference.
Yeah.
They're going to see the technical issue. They're going to be more concerned with how you recover from it than it throwing off your presentation.
I think that's great advice. Okay. Yeah, so my next question would be, after a competition, say after like a regional leadership conference, you get back your scoring sheets. What's the best way to utilize that, and how would you use this feedback to continue on to your SLC or forward?
Well, keep in mind, every judge you run into is going to be completely different. And it's especially challenging at nationals because you have several heats. You have like 9 or 10 heats. And then the top from each of those heats moves on to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have maybe really easy judges for one heat and really challenging judges for the other heat. And you don't know which ones you got necessarily. But when you're looking at the rubric after the fact, the best thing to do, obviously, is to look at those weakest areas. Which areas did you score the lowest in? And then go through there might not be that much feedback back beyond the score. Go back through your presentation or have a parent or someone look through it and say, this is where I scored low. Where do you see a deficiency in my presentation in this area? Really important to get that other perspective, because we know how it is with any academic paper we complete or any presentation. It's very hard to see the flaws in it from our own perspective, since we're the ones who created it. But getting that second point of view and kind of prompting them with where you know you scored low, they should be able to pick out those deficient areas, and you'll be able to improve upon them before your next presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now I would just like you to give some final words of advice for students preparing for this year's events.
Really, and I give this advice all the time, and students don't take it, so try to take this advice. Do not wait till the last moment. It's better to jump on it right away, get it mostly done, and then put refinements on it, because things always come up in your life.
Right.
You never know. You might be sick for a week.
Mm-hmm.
You might be sick the week before nationals when you were going to make all those improvements to your presentation. So you really need to get it done early and then get that practicing in.
So how far before would you say a student should start preparing?
Honestly, I would prepare right after states as soon as I get my rubric back, or right after regionals. It's fresh in your mind still. The pressure of getting it done and presenting for regionals or states is over with. So you can kind of sit back, look at your rubric, make those changes since it's really fresh in your mind. You can still clearly remember your presentation. You can remember where you messed up. Jot down some notes. PowerPoint's great because you can go down into the notes section underneath and jot down some things right away after a presentation that you can correct right away. Say, I don't think this worked right, or I think I need to improve this. But that information, that insight will fade as you get farther and farther away from the event. And so if you're returning back to it a month later, I mean, you're going to have maybe 25-50% of what you remember will have faded.
Right.
So you really need to jump on it quickly, get some big chunks of it done, and then if you want to spend some time later on refining, that's fine. At least the majority of it is done already.
Yeah, I think that's good. It's a very fresh and low pressure situation. And one last question for you. Throughout your years of judging, was there one specific presentation that stood out to you, and why do you think that stood out?
I've had a couple impromptu or public speakers, and those are really hard events, and I'll tell you why they are hard events. Most of the events, you can do very well with them just from pure product and practice. But when it comes to public speaking or impromptu speaking, much of it has to do with natural ability. You have naturally excellent public speakers. They're just born that way, or it's something that develops over time, or they have a deep baritone voice or something. Those attributes you can't really create. You kind of have to be endowed with it. But those are the ones that really stick out, because if someone has a commanding voice, you're going to sit up and take notice of what they're saying. Even if their content isn't great, they sound really good, so they're going to still get high marks. So those tend to stick out the most.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think I've seen in the past too that for a lot of the public speaking events, I've seen like people who I think are really confident speakers in general just end up winning those competitions just because of like the prior experiences. But I think definitely like practicing in front of the mirror, like making sure that you're well versed with what you're saying, I think could definitely get you back up to that level. So yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Gorleski, for all of your time and your insight. Any last words before we end off today?
Enjoy this experience fully, because you will remember this you will forget the teachers, you might even forget your advisor, but you will remember the experience. You will remember going to FBLA states and FBLA nationals, and it's an awe-inspiring thing when you're at nationals and you see all the different states there and just a massive amount of people, and they all have the same goal in mind, to come and be successful in these business-oriented topics. That will stick with you for a long time. So enjoy it fully.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much.